Come along, Mikell, come along. Or you'll be left behind.
Oh, I'm sorry, what, comrade?
We'll have to keep up with the rest.
Oh, yes, of course. It is just that electrical pump on the last stand. If that is capable of all that these Austrians say it is, I must take another look.
I think we should all stay together.
It is my special interest, Denishev.
If you go off now by your own...
Oh, don't worry, comrade. We are all eating in the restaurant at 12 o'clock. That is the arrangement, is it not?
Yeah.
But if I do not catch up with you, I will meet you there. Now, you run along, comrade, or you will get left behind.
My dear fellow, I'm sorry, but it really is quite impossible. It's Friday. If you imagine for one moment that Ellen and I are going to delay going away for our weekend in the country for the sake of some actor reading Dylan Thomas to Viennese intellectuals, well, I'm afraid it's just not on. Well, why not ask the Consul General? He's nearly almost always available. His mother was Welsh, I believe, so under Milkwood and all that's bound to appeal. Yes. Well, ask him anyway. By George. Sincere regrets, but I'm sure he'll do you proud. Bye. Yes, Miss Helen.
There's a man outside who insists on seeing you.
Who is he?
He won't give a name, sir. He just says he's an old friend of yours. And he asked me to give you this.
Show him in.
Will you come in, please?
I don't understand. Who are you? What do you want? Well, it says here... Look, is this some kind of a joke?
Look closely. Hello, Morris. Now, please listen carefully. I've only got a few minutes.
Fairchild Mays. The Russians' greatest coup since Burgess and McLean.
Right.
What's new about him that's so urgent?
Just this. At 10:30 this morning, Donald Mays called at our embassy in Vienna.
For sure. Not some kind of hoax.
For sure.
How did he get out?
As one of a party of Russian engineers on a visit to the Austrian trade fair. Disguised and with a passport giving his name as Yuri Nikitin.
Have the KGB any idea that he's made a run for it?
No, not yet. But Mays admits that at best it's probably only a matter of 3 or 4 days. That's why we have to act fast.
He wants to come back to England?
No, hardly.
But he's bargaining.
Yes, indeed he is. In exchange for £1 million, he's prepared to give us the names of 3 important men in Britain who are currently working for the Russians and who have been since before Mays defected. 2 of them, he claims, hold important posts in our Foreign Office.
And you believe him?
Yes.
After all the additional screening that went on after Mays skipped?
Yes, yes, I think it's very possible. His instructions are that if we're interested in doing business, at around 9:20 tonight, a Herr Otto Liebermann is to be paged to take a telephone call at the hotel where the Russians are staying. That way, he'll know that the deal is on. You'll take care of that when you arrive in Vienna tonight. Philip Jerome, you're a refrigeration expert. In Vienna for the trade fair. The rest of your background's in there.
How do I meet up with Mays?
You get the signal through to him tonight, And tomorrow morning he makes his final break from the Russian party and returns to our embassy.
This is a job for SIS, Section 5.
Under normal circumstances, yes. But you see, according to Mays, the third man is someone within our secret intelligence service. You are going to have to handle this one very carefully, Quiller.
This business has completely ruined my weekend.
Shame.
My wife and I were planning on going to the lakes.
He's arrived?
About an hour ago. He's in one of the guest suites.
Who else knows he's here?
The security officer. He had to know, but he hasn't the slightest idea who he is.
What about the ambassador?
Well, he's on leave. That's just as well, really. He's not very keen on cloak and dagger stuff.
Anyone in your intelligence section been advised?
No, no one. Maximum secrecy. Those were my instructions, and I followed them.
What about your secretary?
Miss Allen. She doesn't work on Saturdays. Neither do I, normally.
She saw Mays when he called here yesterday.
Yes, but there isn't the remotest possibility that you recognized him. I didn't, not at first. Well, not without his moustache and with his hair brushed back the way it is. That's very clever.
You have a dog?
Yes. Well, my wife does. Long-haired Dachshund. His name's Max.
Have him clipped and call him Fred. 10 to 1, your wife won't have him in the house. People see what they're expecting to see. Simplicity beats a false nose every time.
Apparently. So, how long will Donald be here? We were friends in the old days. But then they'd have told you that in London.
Yes.
When we were at school, I caught the measles from him, I remember. We were at Winchester together.
And Trinity.
So I imagine that's why he chose to make contact with me.
Probably. Well, I'll take him off your hands as soon as I can. Meanwhile, you and I are the only people he sees.
Yeah, well.
And I think you should have as little to do with him as possible. I don't want you catching anything else. Defection. Maybe it's contagious.
Who are you?
London sent me. My name's Jerome, Philip Jerome.
If you say so. Under the circumstances, though, I take it you're not with the SIS.
Just an errand boy.
How much do you know?
Everything.
An important errand boy.
I earn my keep.
I'm sure you do. What are your orders?
To see this thing through.
Playing it according to my rules?
It's your game.
Quite. But you still might be tempted to cheat.
I'm told you have a winning hand.
I dealt.
So, what are you worried about?
Not worried, just cautious. Everyone enjoys trumping the ace. So what's the first move?
You tell me how you got out of Russia.
Why?
Because if it doesn't sound right, I catch the next plane back to London.
Shortly after I arrived in Moscow, the Russians gave me a job as head of the English translation department of the State Publishing Company.
Officially, in fact, since January '62, you've been deputy controller of the British section of the Information Division of the KGB.
Anyway, I was sufficiently important to be allocated a flat in Moscow, a car, and a dasher in the country. It's always been my habit to get out of the city at weekends. About 18 months ago, I established a reason for spending more time out of town on my own.
What was the reason?
Ornithology. I became a keen bird watcher.
Didn't the KGB have you under surveillance?
Only for the first few months or so. And that was more for my protection than anything else. Just in case someone like you should be foolish enough to try and take me out of circulation.
Go on.
Last Thursday, I left the centre shortly after 4. I was due a long weekend. Drove out to my dasher, picked up my camping gear, drove a short way into the forest and hid it. Then later, I drove back to Moscow and telephoned Yuri Nikitin.
Was Nikitin in on your plan?
Hardly. He was someone I'd been looking for a long time. He was ideal. A widower, no family or close friends. Solitary, with work as his only interest. Once more, he was similar in build and general appearance. I'd read the KGB file on him, so I knew all about his background. And then, very discreetly, I kept him under observation. Meanwhile, through official channels and without becoming directly involved, I managed to arrange for him to be included in the party coming to the trade fair in Vienna.
So, on Thursday, you telephoned him?
I introduced myself as a KGB officer. Told him I had to see him immediately and he was to say nothing to anyone. He was terrified. But he kept the appointment. 7:30 the following morning, I flew out of Moscow as Yuri Nikitin. There were no problems.
And what happened to Nikitin?
Hey!
When will you be missed?
Their first thought will be that I've had an accident. By lunchtime, they'll send search parties into the forest. But it's a big area to cover. By Monday, when I haven't appeared, the centre will put into effect routine protection procedure. By Tuesday, they'll probably have twigged and tied me in with Nikitin.
What about his disappearance here today?
Oh, he's not important. It's a big exhibition. I just think he's wandered off on his own again.
When does the Russian party go back to Moscow?
On the afternoon flight on Sunday. Any more questions?
Yes. Why do you want to come out?
Because I'm a greedy and self-indulgent man. And through many a dreary Moscow winter, the thought of spending my declining years somewhere in the sun, with a little gaiety around me and a fortune to spend, had more than a passing appeal.
I wouldn't give much for your chances of enjoying the good life for too long.
My concern is the present arrangement. Let's go over it, shall we? Just to make sure there's no misunderstanding.
There's £1 million in Swiss francs available in Zurich. You and I will travel there today, and then you'll make a telephone call.
To the man who is holding what you're buying.
Always assuming he still has it.
We'll rely on it. Even though it's Saturday, we'll meet him at his office.
As a witness to the handover.
Exactly. Your money for a sealed envelope from his safe.
You check the money while I read through the stuff in the envelope.
No. Not all of it. Just enough to convince you you're not being cheated. The rest you'll get later.
Why the delay?
Give me time to get clear.
It's as if you didn't trust us. So, I'm sitting in an office in Zurich. For how long?
Just until I'm sure you've put no ferrets in after me. Not long. I'm a pro, too, remember?
And when you're happy, you telephone, right?
Right, with a prearranged signal. That's when you get the rest of the pages.
And you're on your own?
Well, not quite. I have the money. And I still have one or two old friends I can call on for help.
You'd be better off praying.
When do we leave? Remember, if our business isn't completed by the time Moscow gets suspicious, they'll close down all agents known to me as a matter of course. They'll also warn the 3 gentlemen in Whitehall to get out of Britain. And the British government will then be faced with yet another major spy scandal. I imagine they're anxious to avoid that.
Most anxious.
Then delay is of no advantage to anyone, is it?
I have some arrangements to make outside the embassy. They won't take long.
I hope not.
Stand against the wall. I need an up-to-date photograph. Hello, Willie.
Must be 2 years, Englishman.
3.
Whenever you come to the Belvedere, You bring trouble with you.
And profit.
Money interests me. It's my business. Are you buying or selling this time?
Buying.
Well?
It's all fixed.
How?
Light aircraft at the local flying club. We should be in Zurich in 3.5 hours at the latest.
What about a passport?
There'll be one waiting for you at the club. For the moment, though, you're still Yuri Nikitin.
Why a taxi?
Less conspicuous. An embassy car turning up at the flying club, people might start asking questions.
Still and you'll be okay. Move and I'll kill you.
Idiot. It was the Englishman we were after. What is this Russian doing here?
They were together.
Couldn't you have waited?
Any longer and they'd have been in heavy traffic again. We could never have made the snatch.
That's right. We had no choice.
I don't know who you are, what you think you're doing, but I think you made more than one mistake today.
Shut up.
I'm trying to point out that if you were after somebody important, then you've got the wrong man. My name's
Philip Jerome. It says so in your passport. You are an engineer. Well, we could have picked just about any foreigner now in Vienna. It was a random choice. It's your hard luck that we ended up with you. Because, you see, we are going to ask your embassy for 1 million Austrian shillings for your safe return. That's how important you are to us. Now, I warn you, keep your mouth shut. What did you do with the taxi driver?
I tied him up and dumped him out in the woods off the Purkesthof Road.
Good. Well, you better get the Russian out of here and dump him, too.
Why?
Why? What do you mean, why?
Well, sure, so we made a mistake, but 2 for the price of 2.
It makes good sense.
No, we can't. We never planned it.
Maybe not, but we've got him. And letting him go could be dangerous.
That would be a bit of a joke, wouldn't it?
I say let's take the Russians for what we can get out of them.
Only fair, really. After all, neutrality, that's Austrian government policy. Why should we favour one side against the other?
Besides, it means that much more money for us.
All right. Did you understand all that?
Yes.
Good. So then, we are going to ask 1 million Austrian shillings for you, just like we are for the Englishman, payable by noon tomorrow.
But that's about £25,000. Look, be sensible. I don't know anybody who could come up with that kind of money.
That's certainly true for me. I don't even have a family.
What about Mother Russia? You are one of her sons, aren't you? And Britannia is supposed to look after her own, isn't she, Mr. Jerome?
Yes, but where are you going to get the money by midday tomorrow? The banks are closed for the weekend.
A word from the right ministry is all it would take to open them again. Let's hope so, anyway. For your sakes. Take them in the next room.
They must be catching. Everybody's talking in millions these days.
You find this situation amusing?
Not really.
Of all things to happen, why us?
You heard what the man said. A sheer fluke. Random choice.
That damn woman. If it hadn't been for her, they'd probably have let me go.
And if they had have done, what would you have done?
Got back to Hildreth. Got him to make a signal to London to send someone out to replace you.
Thanks.
There's a lot at stake here. Not only for the British government, but for me as well. Nobody's indispensable.
That's for sure.
It's because of you we're in this mess.
I was ready for most things, but not this.
We've got to get out of here.
What would you suggest? There are 3 of them in there, and 2 of them are armed.
What if we tell them the truth? Tell them who we are and what we're doing. We could offer to take them to Zurich with us. I'd willingly give them 100,000.
Are you serious?
Well, it's worth trying, isn't it?
Listen, you give them a hint that they've got Donald Mays and someone like me on their hands. They've only got to call the Soviet embassy, and they'd get a damn sight more than 100,000.
What I'm worried about is supposing the Russians pay the ransom and these people hand me over to them.
A reply to my signal to KGB records. Yuri Nikitin is a development engineer at the Masharov Works in Moscow. None of the work is classified as secret, and from what we have on file on him, he is in no way politically suspect.
What did the tour leader have to say?
Well, he thought that Nikitin had merely strayed from the party and became engrossed in one of the exhibits. He did this yesterday, I gather. Well, the tour leader assumed that he had repeated his error. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, when Nikitin still had not rejoined the party, however, the leader became concerned and reported the fact that he was missing. Well, the rest you know.
1 million shillings to be paid by tomorrow noon. I suppose we must take this seriously.
Yes, I think so. The Austrian police certainly do.
The British too. They suggest as nationals of both our countries are involved, we should keep close liaison.
I have no objection to that.
What do you know about this Englishman, Philip Jerome?
Ah, yes, well, from the inquiries which I was able to make here, it would appear that he is also an engineer, a specialist in refrigeration, working for a large frozen food company. I have asked our people in London to initiate a top priority check on him.
Yes? Oh, yes, send him in. He's expected. A British representative.
Councillor Cherevenko.
How do you do, Miss...
Beatty. Edward Beatty.
Mr. Beatty. Second Secretary Rykov.
How do you do? Chancery?
Mr. Rykov has special responsibilities.
Ah, I understand.
For financial matters.
Quite.
Please.
Thank you.
Have you been at the British Embassy long, Mr. Beatty?
Well, I'm not actually with the embassy. I work in the Foreign Office in London. I'm here on a private visit. Morris and Eleanor Hildreth are old friends of mine. In fact, we were just on our way to their place in the country for some fishing when the embassy received the ransom note for Jerome. Naturally, that changed everything.
Of course. Can you tell me, Mr. Beatty, how it is that you have become involved?
Certainly, Councillor, yes. It just so happens that I do have some experience in kidnapping. I'm sure you remember the case of the British consul in Guatemala in 1971, and then again in 1973 in Uruguay.
I remember.
Yes, well, in both instances, Secretary Rykov, it was I who conducted the negotiations with the kidnappers.
I see. But both cases were political kidnappings, were they not?
Yes, indeed.
Well, there's no danger of that here.
Well, it is a possibility.
Well, an unlikely one, don't you think, Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
I mean, taking everything in consideration.
You are probably right. But nonetheless, a kidnapping is a kidnapping, whatever the motive. And the victims are always at a considerable risk, Secretary Rykov. I think that my experience will be of value.
Oh, undoubtedly. Tell me, your government is prepared to pay the ransom?
Yes, but out of public funds. Jerome's family could never raise a sum like that. And what is the attitude of the Soviet government?
Moscow is prepared to pay if necessary.
And in the Soviet Union, all funds are public.
Quite.
However, before paying the ransom, every effort must be made to discover the whereabouts of Nikitin, if possibly rescue him, and apprehend the criminals who are holding him.
Naturally. But frankly, I don't think that'll be very easily done. And of course, it is the responsibility of the Austrian police. I have already spoken to Major Mahler of criminal investigation. And I gather you have too, Secretary Rykov?
Yes.
Yes. Well, he strikes me as being a very able man.
I'm sure he is. Nevertheless, we reserve the right to take an independent action, in parallel with the Austrian authorities, naturally.
Yes, of course. Well, if you have those sort of resources.
We do.
The most important thing is to avoid any publicity. That could create difficulties we could well do without. And so far, Major Mahler has been successful in keeping the story from the press.
And I have no doubt that he will continue to do so.
We have no wish that any of this business should become public knowledge. At least not while Nikitin and Jerome are in danger. Once they are freed, my government may take a completely different attitude.
I quite understand.
Such a quote, Mr. Beatty. If only we three had divided the world between us at the altar.
I have a feeling, Secretary Rykov, that there would still have been problems. Thank you very much. In the ransom note that we received, the kidnappers said that they would make... Okay. They said that they would make contact between 8 and 8:30 tonight to give us our instructions as to how the money was to be handed over.
Yes, it says the same here.
Well, I believe, Councillor, that it would be to our mutual advantage and speed things up considerably if we were together when they telephoned. Here, perhaps, in your office, if you're agreeable. And that is convenient. And I think also that would be a great assistance to Major Mahler.
Very well, Mr. Beatty, it is agreed. In a situation like this, protocol is unimportant.
Well, particularly since we both share the same desperate concern for the safety and well-being of Yuri Nikitin and, of course, our man, Philip Jerome.
It's slightly open, but I can't reach it. You try. Is there any way off the roof?
There could be. There's a door that could lead to a fire escape.
Give me a hand. Oh, I've done my ankle.
Try again.
No! No! It's no good. What am I going to do? If they come back and find you gone, they'll probably kill me and make a run for it.
I'll come back in.
No. Be quick. And not the police. Get Hildreth to send some of the embassy security men over here.
Right.
window that can be opened. You're slipping, Billy.
Try that again. We'll break both your legs.
It doesn't look too good for either of you now. You both see too much. Get on the roof and nail that window down tight.
They got me on the stairs. I was going down as they were coming up.
So what now?
Yes, immediately. On the special line. Good. No, I shall handle that from here. Thank you, no, Herr Counselor. Well, any minute now.
Always supposing that they intend telephoning tonight. Very often in kidnapping cases, the kidnappers say they'll telephone at a certain time, but then as an added precaution, they get in touch much later and in an entirely different way.
Very true. But we are ready for them if they do telephone. As you know, gentlemen, with your permission, we have tapped into the listed outside lines of both embassies. If they do call, Councillor Cherebenko, the important thing is to keep them talking for as long as possible. Be vague, pretend you do not understand, say you want to write down the instructions. Anything to keep their conversation going long enough for us to trace where the call is coming from. Not that there is much hope that they will allow themselves to be trapped in that way. My bet is that the caller will only speak for 1 or 2 minutes, and that will not give us enough time.
In which case?
In which case, Habiti, their instructions must be followed exactly. And we shall work towards making arrests after the ransoms have been paid.
There is one thing which I do not understand about this business, and which puzzles both myself and Secretary Reichel.
What's that, Counselor?
How was it that Nikitin and Jerome were together when they were kidnapped?
Ah, but we know that now. The taxi driver, when we found him, explained that. According to him, the two men were sharing the taxi. Apparently, Nikitin was feeling unwell and had left the fare. It seems that the heat in the building was too much for him. He was standing next in line to Herr Jerome waiting for a taxi. The Englishman was concerned about him and offered him a lift to his hotel.
Well, that explains it then.
Gentlemen. Would you excuse us for a moment, please?
Of course.
Thank you. I have just received a message from our people in London. From the checking which they were able to do in such a short time, it would appear that Jerome is exactly what he claims to be, a refrigeration engineer. And Edward Beatty is with the Foreign Office, and he was in Guatemala and Uruguay.
I've never had any doubts about either of them. What possible interest could English intelligence have in Yuri Nikitin? Cherebenko? Yes, put him through. There is someone who doesn't want to give his name. Yes. Speaking.
I can't hear anything. Not a sound. There's no light on in there. I think they've gone. Do you hear what I said? I think they've left us on our own. They've gone. They've gone. The police.
Waiting to be rescued.
But they'll probably hand me over to the Russians. There may be someone from the embassy with them.
You're going home, comrade. To the home you chose on tomorrow's flight.
The kidnapping. It was a setup. You You arranged it. But why? What do you gain from it?
Well, things are a bit tight financially in Britain these days. And £1 million is a lot of money.
And you're not interested in the 3 names I can give you?
Very.
And what sort of game are you playing?
Oh, don't complain. At least this way you get back in one piece. After you arrive in Moscow, you'll have plenty of time to reach your dasher. And then Monday morning, into the office as usual, refreshed and eager for work.
You damn fool. It won't be as simple as that. Soviet press and television will play this thing up. There'll be pictures of Nikitin everywhere. Reunions with old comrades. The whole thing will be blown. In 24 hours, I'll be in Lubyanka prison. And the 3 men I've offered you on a plate will have left Britain.
Major Mahler, criminal investigation. It seems that you are alone.
Well, there's a fire escape. They probably got out that way when they heard the police cars.
I imagine so. My men are checking.
Mr. Jerome, my name's Edward Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Jerome. That information will be most useful. Fortunately for us, you are unusually observant.
Oh, good of you to say so. But attention to detail, I think that's important. Whatever line of work you're in.
It certainly greatly assists us in ours. Excuse me.
Be sure, comrade, I will personally see to it that the Austrian authorities spare no effort in arresting and punishing those who are responsible for this outrage. This has been a further example of the lawlessness now rampant in capitalist countries all over the world. And our government will react vigorously in a situation in which a Soviet citizen visiting a foreign country is placed in jeopardy. Am I right, Comrade Rykov?
Most certainly.
Councillor Cheravenko. Gentlemen, because the kidnapper stayed on the telephone long enough for us to trace the call to this building, we know that we are dealing with amateurs. Now, I think there's little doubt that this crime was carried out by members of the International People's Freedom Movement. And we found a considerable amount of the propaganda material here, and from the description given to me by Herr Jerome, the man in charge of the operation was clearly Josef Bachmann himself.
Bachmann? But isn't he a communist?
Anarchist.
But surely I read in the newspapers fairly recently of a visit he made to Moscow with other revolutionary leaders. I saw photographs of him shaking hands with your Prime Minister.
Are you sure of this?
The evidence seems conclusive enough, Councillor. And it certainly fits the fact that, according to the Englishman, the group were greatly embarrassed to have Nikitin on their hands. It seems that I had only intended to kidnap Jerome, but something went wrong with their plans.
Well, of course, this puts an entirely different complexion on the whole business.
I take it the newspapers still have no knowledge of this unfortunate incident.
Yeah, that is so, Councillor. And we have made no statement to the press yet.
And you won't have any need to.
That would not be a decision for me to make, Herr Councillor.
I understand. I will talk to your foreign minister. Meanwhile, I'm sure I can rely on your discretion. Thank you, Major. Mr. Beatty.
Councillor?
This affair can become very embarrassing.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for the Austrians, I mean.
For them, too, I suppose, yes.
We have no wish to create difficulties for a country with whom we have friendly relations. A neutral country, on the crossroads of East and West, so to speak. And I'm sure the British government will take the same attitude.
Possibly, Councillor. Probably, in fact.
Then I would suggest, in order to save our Austrian friends from any embarrassment, we do everything we can to see what has happened receives no publicity of any kind.
Yes, perhaps that would be best.
If necessary, I will take the matter up at the highest level and have it agreed between Moscow and London.
No. That won't be necessary. I'll handle it.
What about Mr. Jerome? Will he cooperate?
Oh, yes, I think so. I will speak to him.
Good. And Mr. Rykov will speak to Nikitin.
The Russians are most anxious that this whole business should be kept out of the newspapers.
Really?
So do you understand, comrade? and realize that I am now speaking to you on behalf of the KGB for reasons which do not concern you, but which are to the advantage of the Soviet Union. You are to forget everything that has occurred here in Vienna. You will speak to no one about it, now or ever. Is that clear? You will fly back to Moscow tomorrow with the rest of the group. The explanation for your absence will be that you were unwell. On Monday morning, you will return to work as usual. And remember, one word from me to anyone, even a hint, that everything did not go well for you here, and we shall know about it. Do you understand?
I understand.
Excellent.
And now we will take you back to your hotel. If you have no further need of him, Major, we will take Nikitin back to his hotel. We think he should rest.
Goodbye, Mr. Jerome. Mr. Beatty.
Good night, Secretary Rykov.
Bon voyage. Okay. You've done a good job, Willy.
My people are in the clear.
As promised. The police are convinced it was Josef Bachmann and the IPFM.
From what I hear, Bachmann's in East Germany.
No, he's in the West. You know how these freelance revolutionaries like to get about? He's working underground in Munich at the moment.
And what happens to the Russian?
Congratulations, Quiller. Not that you didn't give me at least one very uneasy moment. You see, it was a little time before I could be sure that that kidnapping was part of your plan. It was very neat.
You'd achieve what you wanted. May's back in Moscow without the Russians ever knowing he'd left.
It was vital, in our very best interests.
What about the three traitors?
We had to protect them. Oh, yes. We've known about them since before May's defected.
Why didn't you bring them in?
Well, you see, for years now we've been feeding them with misinformation to pass on to the Russians. And each one has confirmed the other's report. Most useful. So you see, May's turning them over to us was the last thing we wanted. And if he had got away from Moscow, well, the KGB would have deactivated them immediately. By the way, the third man that Moscow's got in our intelligence is due for retirement this year. Yes, that's him. I understand the Prime Minister's putting him in for a knighthood. For services to his country. Rather fitting, in a way.
Any chance of my getting a knighthood when I retire, Angus?
Of course, Quiller, of course. I just hope you live that long.